Collagen's having a moment right now. Creamers, protein powders, beauty supplements, recovery drinks.
We take the most perfect muscle building protein supplement. And if we take it when we're sitting on our bums, it will not do anything at all.
If you're ready to unlock more better days, to take control of your health, to push past your limits and unleash your full potential, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Dr. Jeremy Bettle. For over 2 decades, I've worked with elite athletes and high performers, helping them optimize their bodies, strengthen their minds, and recover from setbacks. Now I'm bringing that expertise to you through the Vitality Collective podcast. In each episode, we'll dive deep into the science, strategies, and real-world solutions you can apply right away. Whether it's enhancing your physical performance, avoiding or recovering from injury, sharpening your mental edge, or simply feeling your best every single day. With insights from top experts and thought leaders, this podcast is designed to help you take action, feel better, and live the life that you deserve. Welcome to the Vitality Collective podcast, where every day is vital.
Collagen is everywhere right now. It's in your protein powder, your coffee creamer, your skin serum, and about 100 other products that all promise the same thing. The problem is that most of what's being sold to you has very little to do with how collagen actually works in the human body. My guest today is Dr. Keith Baar, who heads the Functional Molecular Biology Laboratory at UC Davis. He has spent decades studying how to load tendons and adapt nutrition to change tendon and ligament function. His research is actively shaping how practitioners think about connective tissue health, injury prevention, and return to play. He's published more than 175 peer-reviewed papers that have been cited over 21,000 times, and he's worked with elite sports programs, including British cycling. In this conversation, we get into what collagen actually is, why supplementing it without exercise is essentially useless, when a targeted collagen protocol genuinely does something, and why the exercise that you are not doing matters far more than anything you put in a shake. This one has direct application whether you're managing chronic tendon issues, thinking about injury prevention, or just trying to understand whether your supplement spending is going anywhere useful. Dr. Keith Baar, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. We were just having a quick chat about some of the impact that your research around collagen has had on my career and my athletes coming out of pro sport, where we had these very specific protocols in place and very targeted use of these different compounds and different supplements that we see now. What I'm seeing is that collagen specifically is having a moment right now. You know, collagen is now in everything. Creamers, protein powders, beauty supplements, recovery drinks. But are people actually understanding what collagen does, or are they just buying into this marketing?
Yeah, so a lot of what the collagen is taking advantage of a lot of really good marketing and the idea that, oh yeah, it's the most common protein in our body. We make a lot more of it when we're young than when we're old. So if we take it, we're going to look better. Our skin is going to be better. Our hair is going to be better, whatever it is.
Right.
And there's very little research that would support all of that. As far as collagen being a primary component of any of those things. So
Right.
Just like protein overall, protein's having its day in the sunshine. And so the leucine-rich protein component, the collagen protein, all of these things, they are very important for our body. We do need them. And we probably need a little bit more than what we traditionally get.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that we take the most perfect muscle building protein supplement, or the most perfect tendon and ligament building supplement. And if we take it when we're sitting on our bums and not doing anything, it will not do anything at all. The activities that we do are 95 to 98% of the change that we're going to get in muscle mass and in tendon function and ligament function. And the nutritional things that we can do, we can play with it. Yeah, we can make, and it's a relatively decent effect, but we're still just within that kind of 3 to 5, maybe a little bit more than that percent of what we're getting is coming from the nutrition. The rest is coming from our activities and making sure that we get the activity right.
I think that is such an important message that, I mean, if people take one thing away from this show, you just heard it in the first 5 minutes of what we're talking about here. And I want to just back up on a few things that you said there about collagen, because I don't think there's a clear understanding of what it is. Because when you hear it makes up your skin, your hair, and your tendons, ligaments, it does sort of naturally follow in a simplistic way that, oh, it's contained in this. If I supplement it, that's where it'll go. So you mentioned collagen is a protein. Can you talk to us a bit about the different types of protein and the quality of the protein? Because there's a lot of conversation around that right now.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things that come into this. So collagen is not just one protein. There's over 20 collagens in our body. So the majority of what we talk about when we talk about collagen, what we're referring to is collagen 1. Because our tendons and ligaments are going to be about 80% of the protein that's in them is going to be collagen. Our muscle, it's only going to be about 3% of what's in a muscle. Our skin is going to be kind of in between those two things. But the collagen 1 is going to be the primary collagen for a lot of our tissues. Collagen 3 is going to be another important one. Collagen 5 is really important, collagen 5 and 6. So all of these different collagens are different things. When we take a supplement that has collagen, almost all of it is coming from collagen 1. People think about, okay, there's gelatin, like I'm going to make Jello. There's going to be hydrolyzed collagen or collagen peptides. And then there's all of these fancy little enzymatic reactions to get different collagen peptides. So what our work has done over the years is it's shown that no matter what the source of collagen is, whether it's coming from type 1 or type 2, which is in our cartilage, or whether it's coming from the skin. So all of these different collagens, no matter what I take in, I'm not taking in dietary collagen. And because I've taken in collagen, what that's going to do is now that whole protein is going to be taken out and it's going to be stuck into my tendon or into my skin or into my hair. What we're doing is we're breaking it down, and almost all of it is broken down into single amino acids. The reason that could be important is that collagen is a pretty unique protein in that every third amino acid is one amino acid, is glycine. Every third amino acid is proline. So you have a glycine, and then you can have any of the 20 amino acids, and then you're going to get a proline. And the reason that is that's the smallest amino acid on one end, and it's the bulkiest amino acid on the other, and it just repeats. Glycine, any amino acid, proline. Glycine, any amino acid, proline. The reason it has these structures is because what it's going to do is it's going to form a little rope-like structure. It's going to form a little helix. And so it's going to pivot around the big bulky one, the proline, and it's going to allow that pivot by having the smallest one at the other end. When we make our own collagen, we need to have all of the building blocks. If you think of your Lego set and you have all the different colors, collagen only uses 2 colors plus a little bit of all the other ones. You can think of it as like we've got the black ones, we've got the white ones. So the black ones are the glycine, the white ones are the prolines, and then all the nice colors, that's only the one little one in the middle. Yeah. If you're going to make a Lego set, you want to have colors, you want to have all of this stuff in the right spot in order to build it properly. And if what we're trying to build is this really complex structure that has all this color, we want to have all of the other amino acids. Dietary collagen has very little of those other amino acids. It has a lot of proline and a lot of glycine. And so it doesn't matter whether it comes originally from a bone, a tendon, a ligament, a cartilage, skin, all of them have all of these different collagens in them. We haven't found any difference for making collagen in people, whether I get that collagen from the skin or from the bone. The one thing that we tell people that's really important is that, like all mammals, most of the meat that we eat are coming from mammals. Most mammals store their heavy metals in their bones. So when we take in lead, or there's a little bit of arsenic or a heavy metallic element, that's potentially bad. So what we do, we put it into the kind of mineral component of our bone and we store it there. So that's what cows do. That's what pigs do. So when you get a collagen that's made from a bone broth from a cow or a pig, it's going to have the potential to have a lot of heavy metals in it. So there are papers out there where they've taken bone broth and they've looked to see how much lead is there, how much of these other heavy metals, and they're higher than we want them to be. And so what we tell people to do is to either get your collagen source from the skin, which is not where we store our heavy metals, but there's a lot of collagen in it. So pelt-based collagen products, or get it from a marine source. So you can get it from fish, you can get it from any kind of marine animals, and they don't store their heavy metals in their bones and the skin. They put it into the steak. That's why pescatarians often find that, I have a high level of mercury, because when fish take in mercury or lead or other things, they don't put it in their bones, they don't put it in their skin, they put it into their muscle. And so when if we eat a lot of fish, we can, because it's getting concentrated, those heavy metals get concentrated, we can get lots of heavy metals from eating fish. So I have a friend who's pescatarian, when she was getting ready to get pregnant, she actually went in to say, okay, can you test me for mercury? And because she didn't want to have high levels of mercury if she's going to, be carrying a baby. And sure enough, she had really high levels of mercury because she ate lots of tuna, lots of swordfish, all of these very big fish, and mercury is going to concentrate as the fish get bigger and bigger. So for collagen, as long as you have a pelt source, it's coming from a skin, we're okay with it.
So contrast the quality there of a more simple protein like collagen with a whey protein, for example. All proteins aren't created equally. And what I've seen is that with this marketing problem, a lot of companies replacing portions of protein powders, removing whey and adding collagen so that they can mark it up and sell it as a collagen supplement. How are the two different, and what might be the drawbacks or the advantages of that?
Yeah, so the first thing is that whey is a higher quality protein, and all that means is it doesn't mean that it's from like some fancy place in some really expensive restaurant. What it means is that it has all of the essential amino acids, and it has all of the amino acids in it. And so basically, collagen doesn't have at least a few of those amino acids, and so because it doesn't have all of the amino acids, basically it has a protein quality score of 0 because it's not a complete protein. So, but it's also like rice and beans. Rice and beans are lower quality because they don't have all of the amino acids. But when you eat rice and beans together, the ones that are high in rice are low in beans. The ones that are low in rice are high in beans. And so when you eat them together, this is why so many populations around the world eat rice and beans as a classic staple food, because they give you all of the amino acids. So the complementarity of the foods has increased the quality of the protein. All that means is we're getting all of the building blocks we need. When we take in whey, it's a full, complete protein and a high quality protein because it has all of the amino acids, especially all of the essential amino acids. And the big thing with whey that's really important as far as protein supplementation is that it has high leucine content, and it's high, easily available leucine. It's a branched chain amino acid, but the reason it's important is because it comes into your cell, and there's in pretty much all of the cells, there are proteins that actually bind leucine. And when they bind leucine, it's stimulating protein synthesis in all of the cells within our body. And so when we try and build muscle, if we have more leucine in the protein, that's going to give us the signal that's going to add together with our exercise to amplify each other in this signal that is going to cause us to synthesize more protein. That complex, that signaling complex, is probably known to your listeners because it's really important in the longevity vitality space. Because mTOR complex 1, or this mechanistic target of rapamycin, is that central thing for growth. The reason why it's interesting and important in the vitality and the longevity space is that if I block it using a drug called rapamycin, I actually extend lifespan. I can reverse a lot of the negative effects that happen with metabolic diseases. The problem is that when you use, relatively decent doses of rapamycin, the way that it works, the really most important thing for longevity space is that what it does is in order for all cells to respond and increase their production of protein and then maybe make more cells, you need mTOR complex 1. inflammatory cells absolutely need mTOR complex 1 in order to be active for them to proliferate. So if you hear inflammation, what that means is you've had a lot of mTOR activity in your inflammatory cells. Those cells have proliferated, gotten more and more, and now they're producing more of the little chemicals they produce, which can potentially have bad effects on tissues around the body. And so when you take a low dose of rapamycin, you can block the inflammatory cells from proliferating, block a lot of the inflammation, and having a good effect on certain aspects of metabolism and longevity. From our vantage point, when we're trying to improve muscle size and strength or mobility or vitality, so quality of life, I don't want to do that because I want to do that using my exercise. So if I go out and I exercise, what I'm doing is I'm actually titrating mTOR complex 1 activity on and off, depending on what exercise I do and what tissue I'm looking at. So when I go out and I go for a run, for example, what my body is doing is it's turning off mTOR in the liver. It's turning off mTOR in the muscle. It's turning on mTOR in the brain. It's doing all of these things because of all of the different stresses that are happening as a result of that exercise. If I lift a heavy weight, that heavy weightlifting is going to turn on my mTOR in my muscle more than any other signal that we have. And that's going to be one of the things that drives the increase in muscle mass and strength.
Mm-hmm.
So I can play with mTOR activity around the body simply by exercising. And the reason that that's better than a drug is because the drug goes everywhere. So now what I've done by taking rapamycin is I've blocked it everywhere. And so now I don't grow my muscle as well. Now I can't mount an immune response as well. Now my brain isn't going to function as well because brain-derived neurotrophic factor, this growth factor for our brain, it signals through mTOR. And so if I block mTOR throughout my whole body, it's going to help me decrease inflammation, and that might have some positive effects, but it also has this negative effects because you're doing it everywhere. If instead I come in and I start to exercise and I do different types of exercise, what I'm doing is I'm turning on mTOR in the tissues I want it to be turned on in. I'm decreasing its activity in the inflammatory cells, in the liver. I'm manipulating it. I'm turning it up, turning it down just by the activities I do. And so I have much better control over it when I do it with my exercise than I do when I do it with a drug.
That's such a fascinating take on it. And I'm so grateful you've explained it like that, because for me, one of the frustrations in coming out of sport is that longevity and health has sort of been co-opted by this biohacking community where longevity is about a supplement or a compound, and there's something passive that we can give you that is going to do this for you.
Right.
We call our program a strength-based longevity program because, as you said, all of these compounds that we can give you, that we make those with our exercise, right?
Absolutely.
And when we start looking at things as a blanket approach, like inflammation is bad, well, not necessarily. It's when and where and how long, and we actually want an inflammatory response from our exercise so that we can create the adaptation. And so long as it's these short-term acute transitory inflammatory spikes, those are actually positive and they help us adapt.
Yeah, they're actually fundamentally essential to the adaptation. Because when you block inflammation, you completely block the ability of the cell to respond to a stress, to many stresses within our bodies. There's great work that came out of the University of Illinois in Chicago where they did some experiments where they knocked out inflammatory cells. And then they tried to increase muscle mass in mice. And what they found is that they couldn't increase muscle mass if they knocked out the inflammatory cells. And it doesn't mean that, there's going to be all this damage and the cells have to come in and break it down and replace it. That's from this idea that, there's damage in the muscle and that's what causes adaptation. That's not really what happens. We're putting a stress on the muscle, absolutely. But the stress is a load-based stress. And so, yes, we see much bigger activity of all of these stress responses the first time you exercise. because there is injury associated with it. And so like all of the signals we measure, when we measure after your first bout of exercise, they're really, really high. If we measure it after your 20th bout of exercise, the same signals are on, but they're on a very small amount. The biggest effect is actually we're decreasing some of the baseline. So when we train, what we're doing is we're having this big inflammatory response. We're having this big stress response. And then what our body does is it says, oh, okay, there's a big stress response or big inflammatory response. So now we need to have all of these anti-inflammatory, anti-stress things that we do. What you see over time is that your baseline inflammation, your baseline stress goes down over time. So now when I do my signal, it's not that I'm increasing where I'm getting to because now I'm stronger, I can push more weight or something like that. It's meaning that the delta is better. So from where I am at baseline, which is now lower, I can get a nice effect from my exercise, even if it's not anywhere close to what I got the first time I did it. And so really what we see, if we use ibuprofen as an example, if we put in ibuprofen, our tendons and ligaments get weaker. There are aspects of inflammation that are fundamentally essential to the ability for tissues to adapt. And so a good example of it is the pathways that are activated by inflammation. One of them is the JAK-STAT pathway. And the JAK-STAT pathway, okay, everybody, it's for inflammation. Well, also JAK-STAT signaling is absolutely essential for the taking erythropoietin and making new red blood cells. It's actually fundamentally essential for the ability of growth hormone to signal to increase IGF-1 in all of our cells. So the only way that growth hormone works is through JAK-STAT. You wouldn't say that growth hormone is an inflammatory hormone. No, none of the people who are like, oh, hormone. All of the people who are longevity experts, oh, we need to give you growth hormone because everybody's growth hormone drops. Okay. But in the same sentence, you just said we need to block inflammation. And this is one of the fundamental pathways that is an inflammatory pathway is actually growth hormone going and producing IGF-1. All it is they use the same, because growth hormone comes up when you stress. Yeah. So I can increase your growth hormone. There are some studies that show like 300% or 300-fold actually. And all they do is they do really heavy leg strength exercise. Yeah. So you do really heavy leg press and you see growth hormone levels go up. Why? Because it's a stress. Just like these stresses that cause inflammation are stress. So the reason that growth hormone signals through these inflammatory pathways is that it's not signaling inflammation, it's signaling stress. And so when it signals stress, now it's going to use pathways that were used by the inflammatory cells. But we're not saying that growth hormone is really bad and we got to get rid of it because it's using these inflammatory signals. We're saying that, we need to have more of this to have healthy aging. Okay, that's fine. If somebody injects you with growth hormone, it's going to be there 30 minutes and it's not going to do anything because it's really not there long enough and it's not there in the right spot and it's not there and it's not going to increase your muscle mass.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? When we block inflammation, we're blocking all of these kind of stress response. Stress, exercise is a stress. Hormesis is the idea that if we block all of the stress associated with exercise, what we're going to do is we're actually going to block the adaptation to the exercise. We know this from people who do ice baths after they do their lifting weights. All they do is they block the increase in muscle mass and strength. As you know, if we take lots of anti-inflammatories, lots of ibuprofen, what are we doing? We're decreasing the adaptation. All of these things are because in order to have an exercise adaptation, we need to have stress. And a lot of the stress pathways are the same pathways that are important for inflammation. They're the same pathways that are important in all of these other things that are life stresses that have a negative effect.
Yeah. And there's so much nuance in there that gets missed in the 30-second Instagram reel, right? And I think the important message for me is that the targeted effects, when we exercise, you said the inflammation dials up in certain places and down in others, right? So it's where it needs to be versus a more global approach. And I think that goes as we come back to sort of collagen versus whey. Mm-hmm. How and why we are using them, as with any supplement, needs to be very, very clearly defined. So if I'm looking to build muscle or, especially like the female population, they're getting a lot of messaging right now. You need to be taking in protein and you need to be lifting weights to build mass and build bone mass and all the rest of it. If that's the case, if that's what you're trying to do, you need more of a whey protein type source, right? More of a complete protein. With the collagen, what would be the use case there of taking a collagen supplement? Because, Michelle gets marketed this stuff all the time. It's in the beauty products that you rub on your skin.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. Yeah. And the same thing with hyaluronic acid. It's really important for how our body works. It's not going to do much when you put it on your skin. It's not going to get in. So it's a really important point. So when we're looking to build muscles and other cells, what we want is we want all the amino acids. But it's not enough. Again, we've got a paper that was just accepted that's coming out that I did when I was on sabbatical with Luc Van Loon. Luc Van Loon is one of the best proteostasis people in the world for how does what you eat affect how the turnover rate of the proteins within your body. And so what we did is a really cool study. So we took people who were undergoing total knee replacements. What we gave them is something called deuterated water. So deuterated water just means that the hydrogens in the water were replaced with a heavy hydrogen. So it's not radioactive, but it's heavier. We use those hydrogens to make amino acids that we can synthesize in our bodies. Those are the non-essential amino acids. We make them into alanine. So then what we can do is we can see how much deuterated alanine there is in the tissue. It's a little bit like what they used to tell you as a kid, that when you went swimming in the summertime, they said, don't pee in the pool because we put this special dye in the pool and it'll make a little red circle around you. That's all we're trying to do, is we're trying to see which of the amino acids came from how recently. What that allows us to do is allows us to estimate how much turnover there has been. And so the reason we take protein, the idea is that lets us build more new protein and store that new protein in our tendons, ligaments, cartilage, muscle, bone, all of these different tissues. We took the total knee, we isolated the tendons, we isolated the ligaments, the cartilage, the bone, and we took a muscle biopsy as well. And what we were looking for is to see how much of the deuterated protein was there. We gave half the people within the cohort 40 grams of extra protein. Because if extra protein is really important, then what's going to happen is we're going to see greater protein turnover. We're going to see greater deuterated amino acids in the tissues that came from those people who had that extra 40 grams of protein. The problem was that we didn't see any difference between the ones who didn't have the protein and the ones who did. And so the idea is that we didn't see, even in the skeletal muscle, we didn't see an advantage to having the extra 40 grams of protein. So the idea here is that without the exercise, because these are all people going in for total knee replacement, they're not doing a lot of training. They're not doing a lot of what they should be doing, which is prehab to make sure the tissue is ready for the surgery. They're just sitting around doing nothing, eating their nice high quality. In this case, it was a dairy protein. So basically, it was exactly what we want to do to improve muscle in young, active, healthy, exercising people. We just didn't see that in this older population without exercise, that there was any benefit. So even when we have a really high quality protein, if that's all we have, there's not a great benefit to it, at least in 1 week's worth of protein turnover. Maybe if we had gone out to a year, we would have seen an effect like that you'd lost less muscle mass if you had the extra 40 gram of protein. But in the short term, we didn't see any difference. And so what that again tells us is that, yes, we want to have all of the essential amino acids. Yes, when we have that coming from a source that's easier to digest, we get a greater acute increase in protein synthesis. And that should result in us building our muscles and our tendons and our bones bigger and stronger. The problem is that I can give all kinds of lectures on exercise, and I'll spend 50 minutes talking about exercise. At the end, I'll say, and you want to support it by having these, getting enough sufficient protein. So this is the protein. And then people come up afterwards. Oh, all I got to do is get the protein in. I got to get protein. That's the only takeaway they take from it. I'm like, I talked for 50 minutes on exercise. I talked for 2 minutes on nutrition. And all you think about is the 2 minutes. When we look at our muscles, it's the same thing. That 50 minutes, 95% of your muscle is done from your activity. That little extra bit is coming from your nutrition. So we spend 90% of our focus on getting that 5% right. And we spend 10% of our focus getting on the 95% right.
Yeah.
Really what we have to do is get our exercise, our loading right. Yes, we're going to put the icing on the cake, and that's really what the protein is going to do. But as much as lots of us just like to eat the icing straight, the cake is actually the muscle. That's the size of the muscle. The icing is the extra little bits you add to it. We focus on the wrong thing. And again, it goes back to this idea of biohacking, because I'll sit there and I'll say, okay, if we do this load and we do this, it's going to be 8 weeks. You're going to have this effect. They wanted it yesterday. It's like Homer Simpson. Exactly. It's like, you're going to cook the whole cow in 5 seconds, but I want it now. It just really is problematic, because the truth about biohacking is that if we make small investments every day, we have huge improvements in vitality. There's nothing we can do that's going to replace that investment, that foundation that we build by getting our sleep right, getting our exercise right, and then having appropriate amounts of nutrition.
Right.
But it's really about getting the exercise right, getting our activities right, getting our recovery right. If we get those two things, the foundation is built. Then you can come in with a little bit of extra stuff. What we're talking about, the supplements, this is the last little 5% there. Most people try and build their pyramid upside down. They try and build the foundation on these little biohacks, these little quick fixes. That's the 5%. There's no sturdiness to their foundation, because basically an upside down pyramid is just not going to stand.
Right.
It's interesting in sport that really started coming in around Dave Brailsford when he was with GB Cycling, and they came with the marginal gains philosophies, and they're really getting into the esoteric around these tiny, tiny things that could be manipulated. In speaking to some of the people further down the line within GB Cycling, years after Brailsford had left, it was interesting that they said, well, we really moved away from that whole model, because we realized we stopped doing things like squats, right? We're learning how to wash our hands so we don't get flu and all these other little things. But it was the squats. It was having really strong legs that made us really good sprint cyclists.
When I used to work with British Cycling, that was the key component of it. It's the secret squirrels component. Is the idea is that somebody has something that they're getting that extra little bit, and so we need to figure out what that is. But they saw all of the improvements because they had really good athletes working really hard, and so everybody's doing the stuff right. Now that's where having those small changes, the right protein, the right amount of, the right timing of the protein, the right of this, adding this supplement, adding our beta alanine, adding whatever we're going to take in there. Now that's when that is going to have that effect of, improving it a little bit. And the reason for them it's so important is because, the difference between first and second is 0.000001.
Right.
At best.
Right.
So if you're looking at a 1% improvement, for most of us, we wouldn't see that. For an elite athlete, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. So, getting the secret squirrels component, getting the small bits right was really important for British Cycling. But that's because they were doing everything else right. And the problem with most of us is we see Chris Hoy is taking this supplement. Oh, I got to take the supplement. Well, Chris Hoy is also lifting a boatload of weight. He's training. Yeah. He's got all of this stuff right, and he sleeps and he does everything. He lives it religiously through what he does. Yeah. So of course when he takes it, it's going to have that little tiny effect. That's not what got him the gold medals. That's not what got him the knighthood. What got him the knighthood was the hard work, the time in the gym, all of those things, getting that right, and being surrounded by people who understood that, and then. The little tiny pieces, that's when we come in with that little 1%, the little beautiful thing that you put on. If you think of it like a chef, you're making dinner, you're making this gorgeous dinner. And if you just sprinkle on these little gold particles and everybody's going to be like, oh, look at that. That's amazing. Yeah, but it's not about that. That's not the core of the taste. That's the inert bits. That just makes it look really good. Really what went into it was all the stuff they did in the back in the kitchen, the hours that they spent getting the meat perfect, getting all of these other things perfect. What we see as the consumer is, oh, look at how pretty it is. But that was the thing that they added at the end. That was the little tiny bit. Everything else that makes it amazing because it could look gorgeous. If it tastes horrible, nobody's going back there.
Exactly. Well, and that's essentially what most of these longevity programs are, is that they taste horrible, right? You do them for a little bit, you try them, they look fancy, they're really pretty, they promise you a lot of stuff, but you don't see any results. And this is why, when I talk to a lot of certainly new clients, and, I'm this, as far as they said, like this fancy sports trainer, right? They're going to get the same treatment that the pros got. What they don't realize is that what the pros got was exactly what you said. We got them really, really strong. And, if you were weak, you were hurt. Like, period.
Yep.
No amount of red light therapy or creatine or anything else. That the one thing that we found in years of testing and monitoring, we studied a lot of stuff falling away, all these different mobility tests and all this stuff. Basically, if your groin squeeze was in the bottom 30%, you had a reactive tendinopathy, you had some sort of soreness in training camp.
Yep.
Like, get strong, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing what we could do with that.
Yeah. And so we talk about that all the time because the number one reason that athletes are out is because they have musculoskeletal injuries. And people are like, oh, you got to stretch. Stretching decreases injuries. Yeah. And then I mentioned to them that our women's gymnastics team has the highest rate of Achilles tendon ruptures of any team that we have. In the NCAA, the people with the greatest mobility, the greatest flexibility have the highest rate of tendon rupture.
Right.
That's not going to stop you from getting tendon ruptures or musculoskeletal injuries. If I have a strength training program, that decreases musculoskeletal injury rate by about 2/3. The reason for that is we pull muscles when the tendon is stiffer than the muscle is strong. And if we do our exercise right, we make the muscle stronger, we make the muscle end of the tendon a little bit less stiff, and overall that structure works better. You're not going to take a supplement, you're not going to take anything that's going to change that. So if you have weakness within that structure, you are going to get a muscle pull, you're going to get some other type of musculoskeletal injury, and you could take the most beautiful supplement ever created, and it's not going to change that because you don't have the strength to compete at that level.
In the NHL, the way we looked at it was the injury happened when you exceeded your capacity.
Yeah.
Right. You get hit by a bigger object than you're used to being hit by, or you move faster than you were used to moving. That's when injury occurred. And
well, the injury occurs with the rate of jerk. And so the rate of jerk is like acceleration in two directions. You can go super fast. That's great.
Yeah.
But if somebody's coming really fast at you, that impact is what's going to cause the problem. The faster you go, the greater the jerk when you hit something you stop.
Yes.
And so the result is the injury is much, much higher. The degree of denaturation of all of these proteins, when I'm playing against a bigger, stronger hockey player, football player, whoever, when they hit me, that high speed is going to have way more jerk, and that's going to now have to be absorbed by my body. And it doesn't have to be an impact from hitting somebody. When I increase my speed of training, I'm hitting the ground harder and faster. And what that means is my structures are stiffer. So if I'm playing tennis, it's only a little tennis ball. It doesn't do much. But if I hit it and I increase the speed at which I'm hitting it for, I'm going to get tennis elbow. And all that is that's been denaturation of some of the collagen that's in that in that tendon of your extensor. And that's now going to give you somewhat chronic pain unless you fix it. That's what we get into as we get into all of these high velocity things, all of these high movements. So we have to prepare for them. So we have to prepare for them by ramping into them. So we slowly add these high jerk movements in our training so that when we actually experience them on the field, it's not the first time. So we don't get the injury to the same degree.
Yeah.
And our body's prepared for it.
Yeah. That's the message that we try and give over and over to people in the general population. In sport, we have these goal-based training programs where we know the demands of your sport. At the Leafs, we knew the demands of hockey. We could train people to meet those demands. And when we did, injuries disappeared. We went 3.5 years and we didn't have a non-contact injury. The general population was seeing people get up off the couch and decide, I'm going to go and start playing pickleball every week. And we're starting to see some of those same sort of hard deceleration problems or change of direction problems with the Achilles ruptures
Yep.
because we go from nothing to planting hard through that toe. The Achilles
Yeah.
tendon, the rate of
Because
stretch on the
because pickleball, I can play that. It's a small space. I don't have to do anything. But you stick your foot in the ground and you try and go quickly in a different direction. That's when Achilles tendon ruptures happen. So there was 1/10 of all lower body injuries during pickleball were Achilles tendon ruptures. That's a significant injury. And that is just telling us that these are middle-aged people because tendon rupture rate goes up. And by the fifth decade, it's about sixfold higher than when you were 18 or younger. So yes, the rate goes up just because you're older, because the structures change. And now what we're doing is we're taking you, even in highly trained athletes, if they go through a period of inactivity, 2011, the NFL, they had a lockout. So none of the players were training in the off season. And so they sat on the couch. And then what happened is they signed an agreement. They said, okay, let's get everybody back in. Let's do a really short preseason. And in the first week of preseason that year, they had 7, I think, Achilles tendon ruptures. Whereas normally in a whole preseason that lasts for 8 weeks, they would have 1. The reason that they had that is because they've been sitting on their butt. They're not ready to train. Now they're going to start training at a high level because we got to get them ready so that they can do their stuff. Going from nothing to something where there's high amounts of jerk, that's when these tissues are not well adapted. And so the result is going to be that they are at a much greater likelihood of injury.
Yeah. And that the microcosm for us was the rehab process. We would very deliberately progress. And this is true for, if you're general population and you've been hurt or you've been sick or anything and taken time away, the ramp back up where we go through more isometric into a strength building phase, and then we gradually introduce velocity and stretch and plyometric activity where we're doing a little more jumping and stuff that looks more like your sport. Conditioning for all of those different things you're going to be exposed to, so critical. And with the athletes, that final return to play phase wasn't just about, okay, you're coming back from an Achilles rupture, let's make sure your Achilles is good. It was, let's have you not come back and tear a quad or a groin or a hamstring, because all of the tissues had deconditioned.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important piece, is everything will decondition when you get hurt and have
even
time
if you
away.
Don't get hurt.
Right.
Even if you don't get hurt. So these little things we use in our rats. So this is just a boot, a cast, just like you would put on if you twisted your ankle or you had an ankle fracture. So when we put this on a rat, within 3 days, their force that they can produce through their lower leg is down 25%. When we go out to a week, the force is down about 40%. Muscle mass is down, depending on how much you would use that muscle originally. That's a really big change. In 3 days, you lose 25% of your force. The interesting thing that happens is when we take them off, we let them just run around normally. They actually don't bring up their force. And the other thing that's really interesting is their other leg on the other side, even though this was an uninjured animal, we put in a perfectly healthy Achilles tendon, perfectly healthy patellar tendon, you just can't use them anymore because there's the boot on them. Now what happens is the Achilles and the patellar don't work as well. And then when we go into recovery, they never actually regrow the collagen. They never actually return unless you do specific targeted exercise. So, and it's true, we've got colleagues who do ACL ruptures. They can rupture the ACL. What they find, or break a bone, for example, when we break one bone, all of the other bones in the body get weaker. Even if the animal's moving around normally, even if we're moving around normally, we've done this really cool study with a colleague of mine in Belgium, where we put young college students into a knee brace. And before they got into the knee brace, we took their blood. And then we put them in a knee brace and we took their blood again after 5 days. They actually make weaker ligaments 5 days after they were immobilized. So what that means is things are circulating throughout the body that actually change the function of these musculoskeletal tissues, even if you're perfectly healthy, but you just are immobilized. We just published a study today where we took control animals or animals where we hind limb unload. So you can take a mouse and you can pull them up by their tail. They can still get around totally normally. They just can't use their feet. And the reason that that's really important is because it's like somebody who's laying in bed. They just can't get load through the tissues, but they can move normally. And then what we did is we gave a drug that's called a bisphosphonate that protects the bone. So it's what lots of people who have osteoporosis take, or osteopenia, because it actually protects the bone and it keeps the mineral in the bone. When we did that, what we saw was that in the adults, the tendons would actually be better when we protected the bone. So if we made it so that you didn't lose as much mineral from your bones, we actually improved the function of your tendons. Our tissues all talk to each other. And it's not just about that, oh, this tissue is directly loaded. No, when I load my right arm, there's a little bit of a signal that tells the tissues in my left arm that I loaded my right arm. It's not enough to build my left arm, but it does have some small effects. It doesn't mean that if I lift my upper body, my legs are going to get bigger. What it does mean is that there are factors that make it easier. So if I've got a problem and I've got a damaged right knee, I can still work out my left leg and I can still work out my upper body. It will protect it a little bit, but it's not going to be enough to keep it from not going away.
Right.
And so we use this because there are these crosstalk between our bones and our tendons and our muscles. All of these things are really important for how our body responds and for keeping our body working as we go through age. And really, so muscle and bone and all of these tissues, they talk to the brain, they talk to the fat cells, they talk to other cells within the body. And so that's why our muscle strength is the number one predictor for longevity in humans. It's also the number one predictor for prevention of neurocognitive decline. If you're in the strongest population, you're actually going to see a decrease in neurocognitive decline. There's all kinds of reasons why that happens, because in order to stay strong, we need to actually turn on our muscles. To do that, we need to use a lot more of our brain than we do at any other point in time. We also produce these chemicals coming from the muscle, coming from the brain, that stimulate brain neuron production. So there are all kinds of things that do that. But for our longevity, for our vitality, for our quality of life, the really key thing is if we can stay strong, that's going to be huge. And the number one reason that people don't stay strong is because they pick up injuries. And they don't say they've got a tendinopathy and it always hurts when they do X. Then they stop doing X. They stop doing the strength training. And the result is that they decline much faster. And so that's why a lot of our research looks at how we fix tendons after they're injured. And so that's the key component that has been missing for years and years. And so that's one of the things that'll keep people, their quality of life really high.
That is absolute music to my ears, because it's something that we absolutely hammer on constantly, is we have to keep you injury free. And we do that through our strength program. So as this will be like the example you gave me earlier, like we've talked for 56 minutes now about training. Are there any situations under which supplementation of collagen is genuinely useful, or is it just a hype?
No, it's useful. Especially with the performance component. So we actually took our football team and we had them during their heavy weightlifting sessions. We had them take either a placebo or a hydrolyzed collagen with some vitamin C. And you absolutely have to have the vitamin C when you supplement with collagen, because even if you have enough vitamin C when you're doing your daily diet, when we wake up in the morning, especially if we train when we wake up in the morning, we don't have very much vitamin C in our body because our body consumes it. And the reason we need vitamin C is because what vitamin C allows our cells to do is to actually release collagen. So the collagen does absolutely nothing when it's inside the cells that produce it. It only works when it's out in the matrix, in our skin, in our muscles, in our tendons. The only way we get it out is if there's enough vitamin C, because the reason that people got scurvy way back when, without vitamin C, you didn't export the collagen. It's not that you didn't make it, it just couldn't get out of the cells. And so all you had to do is get some vitamin C and suddenly all the cells would release the collagen and scurvy would repair itself really, really fast. So what we know is that in our football players, when they took the hydrolyzed collagen vitamin C versus placebo, didn't change how much strength they added. What it changed is it changed their reactive strength, which meant that they could change direction faster. They had greater rate of force development. Their leg spring stiffness was more. And so what you see is you see performance benefits. We see that when we feed people hydrolyzed collagen or vitamin C, or collagen of any kind with vitamin C, we see that they increase collagen synthesis using blood markers of collagen synthesis. So that's totally good and that's accepted. And there's enough papers now where there's a meta-analysis that says that, look, for performance measures, the performance measures always seem to be better with the hydrolyzed collagen or the dietary collagen. For osteoarthritis, there's a positive effect on decreasing osteoarthritis or knee pain or other things like that. So vitamin C together with vitamin C enriched collagen dietarily can support that. In our football players, they were taking it afterwards, after their strength training. Ideally, if we're looking to target tendons and ligaments and cartilage, we want to put it in before. And the reason for that is that muscle is great because it has lots of blood flow. So I can take my leucine-rich whey protein after my weightlifting or after my strength training or after my endurance exercise, because what's going to happen is there's lots of blood flow going to the muscles I exercised. That's going to deliver what I ate more to the working muscle.
Yeah.
Our tendons, ligaments, cartilage, and bones have less blood flow. And so what we use fluid flow that comes when we're doing the exercise. And so what we're doing is we're digesting, absorbing all of these different nutrients. So we're putting them into the fluid around our joints, into the fluid around our tissues. And then what happens is when we load those tissues, now what's going to happen is the tissue is going to get loaded. That squeezes out all the liquid from the tendon or ligament or cartilage. And then what happens is it relaxes. It's going to suck liquid in from the environment. And if I do that enough times, the liquid it's bringing in is full of glycine and proline, those white and black Legos that we talked about earlier, and it's full of vitamin C. And so now when that cell then gets all of these signals from the exercise, oh, I need to make more collagen. Now what it has is it has vitamin C so it can secrete it, but it has the building blocks. So it can now make the collagen protein. Oh, it's got the vitamin C. So that means it can hydroxylate the prolines that are in there. And then that can get exported from the cell into the matrix and can make the tendon stronger.
Right.
So when we're looking at cartilage, ligaments, tendon, bone, we tend to try and get it in a little bit before, about 30 minutes to an hour before. But if you can't get it in there, again, it's all about this idea that getting it in at some point after is fine. It's just not perfect. So if I have an elite professional athlete, I'm going to get it in before. If I have somebody who just is trying to do their best, train for life, anytime I get it in, it's going to be good. And I just want to keep it at the same time every day, because our cells actually have a circadian rhythm to their production of collagen. So if I exercise right now, the peak of collagen synthesis in my muscles and tendons actually occurs about 24 hours later. Whereas the peak of muscle protein synthesis happens within the first 3 hours, 5 hours. So what's happening is these things are a little bit more delayed for our collagen. Doesn't mean that we're not producing enough collagen then to drive a huge adaptation. It just means that our cells are doing the activity and their response to the activity is to start a process, but that process takes about 24 hours before we see the increase in collagen that we're trying to target. And so if I take it in my collagen at the same time every day, the exercise I did yesterday is going to get, I'm going to deliver those amino acids the next day and so on. So, but the evidence is pretty good for performance measures. We had a nice paper with Luke looking at a mixed protein or a blend of whey and collagen with 5 grams of collagen together with about 25 grams of whey protein. We saw an increase in connective tissue protein synthesis that was only seen with the feeding component. And so we do see that it can do something. Again, the takeaway is that most of it is going to be the activity.
Yeah.
Having the right amino acids and building blocks there is going to maybe make it easier for my cells to respond. Having the vitamin C targeted to where it needs now means those cells can export all the collagen they make, and maybe we get more of it into our tissues, and we, as a result, perform better. We see improvements in leg spring stiffness and other performance measures. And there is nice data out of Liverpool, that the Liverpool John Moores, where they show that they actually see bigger tendon hypertrophy when you lift weights and you take, in their case, it was 30 grams of collagen. And so that work is really nice. Rob Erkstein is the person who does that. And so you can see that there are tissue adaptations that are improved in the presence of the hydrolyzed collagen.
Yeah. And so about 30 grams of collagen, how much vitamin C should go with that?
So the vitamin C, we want to have at least 50 milligrams, probably up to about a maximum of around 200 to 250. So somewhere in that range for the vitamin C. And so the 30 grams is what Rob's shown for improving kind of tendon size. For us, when we look at the whole body and we look at collagen markers in the blood, we see that it peaks around 20 grams of collagen. If I'm going to do a blended protein that has whey protein, all of the essential amino acids, all of the non-essentials together with collagen, now what I would do is I would only need about 5 grams because I'm getting the other amino acids from the whey protein. And that one would be really good for both muscle and tendon because it has the whey protein, the leucine-rich protein to stimulate the muscle to make more, and it has all the building blocks, and it has enough glycine and protein that, because if we just take dairy protein like whey, you actually see a decrease in glycine through the whole body. And so all we're doing with the blended protein is preventing that.
Yeah.
And so that's a great option for people who are looking not to take a whole bunch of different protein supplements. They can look for something that's a blended protein.
And Keith, so what about this beauty industry then? Is there any evidence for any of this stuff that we're seeing for more youthful skin or any protocols that, that people are being sold on right now and spending a lot of money on? Are they just spending their money and not getting much return, or is there any efficacy to that?
There's much less known about the skin because we don't know where to look for an effect on the skin. If we look, so Luke has done a collagen supplementation and then taken a skin biopsy and looked to see how much protein turnover there is. No effect, but they're only looking in the first, say, 5 hours, and they're only looking, and they don't provide vitamin C with it. So again, whether that, it's not definitive. And so again, if you have a product that you're putting on the skin that has collagen, there's no real way for that to get in through your skin to affect collagen in your skin. So that's totally just something that some ad person came up with. Well, there's collagen in your skin, so if you put collagen on your skin, it's going to make it better. No. If there is going to be anything, and I don't know that there is, you'd have to have, you'd want to have something that has some sort of collagen in it, but you'd want to have it together with something that would target the amino acids where you want it to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So either movement, because when we move, our skin also moves, our elbows are bending, or you want to have something where you're drawing the blood to the skin, maybe in a hot environment. So potentially something like that, but there's not enough data that would suggest that, it's improving X qualities of the skin. There are some data that say that, but again, it's not as strong as exercise. So exercise, Mark Tarnopolsky did a beautiful study where he basically took skin biopsies and he saw more skin stem cells in people who exercise than in people who didn't exercise. And so the exercise is going to be far more important for your skin as well. Again, people focus on the easy thing rather than the thing that's actually going to be really the key part for controlling that.
Yeah. And I think it's just the case across the board, isn't it? Like, don't smoke, don't overexpose to sun, and sleep well, and all these things. And it's amazing how good your skin is, right? I just think this message just holds true over and over. I just call it mowing the yard while the house is on fire, right? It's you're doing all these little things for the aesthetics, and just because you think they look good, but really, I think we've got to start focusing on the major factors that are going to influence all of these areas we're trying to address.
Absolutely. And I always tell people that if they want to throw their money away, they can just donate it to my lab, or don't waste it on all of these products you put on your skin, for sure. Whether the dietary collagen affects your skin, I don't know. I know that it has a positive effect on certain connective tissues, especially on the performance measures.
So every week we do 3 takeaways.
Okay.
So for people listening, what would be the 3 most important things you would want people to take away from today's conversation?
Yeah, so get the exercise right is the number one thing. That means everything from understanding what your genetic predispositions are to actually getting the right exercise to do what you're trying to do. If you have a history of neurocognitive decline in your family, then doing both strength and endurance is going to be really important because both of them are really important for your brain. If you have a family history of heart disease, then doing an endurance exercise is going to be really important, but also doing strength exercise because they both provide different stimuli to the heart that are going to be really beneficial to prevent that early death that your family has. If we want to just improve aesthetics, the easiest way to do that is by limiting what you take in and making sure that you are smart enough to get the best possible parents with the right genetics. Because for some of us, no matter what we do, there's no way that we are going to get ripped to the point where everybody's going to be admiring our abs because my genetics just will not allow that. Concentrate on the things that matter is the second one. If we concentrate on the things that matter, then we spend less time and effort on the things that don't matter. Biggest thing is to try and understand the evidence yourself. Try and educate yourself or have people that you trust who are experts, and then basically try and understand as much as you can for the things that matter to you. The more you can educate yourself, the less it's going to be possible to have you buy into some life hack that's totally ridiculous. You know, the more you understand how metabolism works, the more you will never do a cleanse. Because as long as your liver works, you have a perfect way to get rid of toxins.
Yes.
But people spend goo gobs of money on these things and they don't do anything. And if they just understood the actual way that the biology works a little bit, we're not even talking about having, taking courses. It's just about making sure that you read enough from a variety of different sources so that you don't think that you could fix everything from those simple life hacks that seem to cost a lot more than they should. And that's for a reason, because they have a lot more money than I do.
Right. Keith, where can I find you to send you all this money they're saving?
You can find me through the UC Davis. All of my information is there. If you do either the medical school or the main campus, I'm there. Yeah. There's also some videos of some of the stuff that we do. And then I do more probably through LinkedIn. I put links to all the papers we publish on LinkedIn. And it also tells you kind of where I'm going to be and what activities I'm up to. So that's probably the easiest way to follow what we're doing.
Excellent. Well, what a rich resource for people and what an amazing conversation this has been. I've learned a ton just in having the conversations. Thank you so much for the time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely loved that conversation because it aligned so clearly with what so many of our guests on prior episodes have said, and that is that the evidence is clear. Once you really start looking at it, supplements are not the foundation. They're the last 1 to 5%, and most of us are spending 90% of our effort trying to optimize that tiny fraction, while the 95% that actually drives adaptation often gets ignored. Here are the 3 key things to take away from this conversation. Number 1, get the exercise right. That means matching your training to your actual goals, not just doing what looks good on a program. The exercise is doing 95 to 98% of the work. Everything else fills in around it. Number 2, concentrate on what matters. Effort is finite. When you spend it on low return interventions, you're spending it away from the high return ones. Build the foundation properly before you think about what goes on top. Number 3, invest in understanding the evidence. You do not need to become a scientist, but the more you understand how the biology works, the harder it becomes to be sold on something that does not. Read from multiple credible sources. Find experts who are honest about what they know and what they don't know. That education filter is worth more than any single supplement you could buy. If this episode resonated with you, the best way to support the show is to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave a rating or a review. It makes a real difference in helping us reach more people who could benefit from these conversations. You can stay connected with us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Vitality Collective Performance, where we share additional insights, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. The information shared in this episode is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your training, recovery, or health practices. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.